I always thought betrayal would look like a slap to the face. Turns out, it's a voice message you weren't supposed to hear, played twice because you can't believe your own mother is the villain. The message came through at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was in my kitchen, nursing a lukewarm coffee and reviewing logistics contracts for the next day. My phone buzzed on the counter. Paige's phone, actually. She'd left it behind after our dinner, probably on purpose. My sister had this habit of forgetting things when she wanted an excuse to come back and ask for more money. The voicemail notification glowed on her screen. Mom's contact photo smiled up at me, that forced, camera-ready grin she'd perfected for the family trust's annual reports. I shouldn't have listened. Privacy, boundaries, all that decent human behavior stuff. But something about the timestamp bothered me. Mom never called Paige this late unless something was wrong. I hit play. "Paige, honey, it's time we talked seriously about your brother." Mom's voice was different, colder, clinical. "You have to take everything from him. Let him suffer. He's had it too easy for too long, and frankly, I'm tired of watching him coast on family money while you struggle. The trust amendment is ready. Grant will file it Thursday. By next week, Caleb won't have access to a dime." The message ended with a soft click. I played it again, then a third time. My hands were shaking now, coffee mug forgotten on the granite countertop. 35 years of family dinners, birthday cards, and "we're so proud of you, sweetheart," suddenly felt like an elaborate performance. The woman who taught me to ride a bike, who cried at my college graduation, who called me her successful son at every family gathering, that same woman had just casually discussed my financial destruction like she was planning a grocery list. I saved the voicemail to my phone, then I copied it to 3 different cloud accounts. The smart thing would have been to confront them immediately. March over to Mom's house, demand explanations, maybe salvage whatever was left of our family before it completely imploded. But I'd learned something important during my years running Morgan Logistics. Information is power, and emotional reactions are expensive mistakes. Instead, I spent the next hour researching trust law on my laptop. The Morgan Family Trust had been established by my grandfather in 1987, designed to provide financial security for his descendants. Mom served as the primary trustee, with both Paige and me listed as equal beneficiaries. The trust controlled about $2 million in assets, not enough to make us rich, but sufficient to provide a comfortable safety net. Or it had been, until tonight. At 1:30 a.m., I drove to the trust's administrative office downtown. The building was dark except for emergency lighting, but I had a key. Mom had given it to me years ago when she needed help organizing paperwork during tax season. "You're so much better with numbers than Paige," she'd said then. "I don't know what I'd do without your help." Funny how quickly indispensable becomes expendable. The trust office occupied the 3rd floor of a converted warehouse. I took the stairs, avoiding the elevator's potential noise. My footsteps echoed in the empty hallway as I approached the familiar frosted glass door marked Morgan Family Trust, Diane Morgan, trustee. Inside, everything looked normal. Mom's desk was organized with typical precision. Inbox sorted by priority, family photos arranged at perfect angles, her reading glasses folded neatly beside a half-finished crossword puzzle. But the filing cabinet in the corner was slightly open, and I could see fresh paperwork sticking out from the legal documents folder. I pulled out the file. The trust amendment was right there, printed on official letterhead and ready for signatures. My name had been systematically removed from every beneficiary clause, replaced with language that transferred my entire share to Paige. The document was dated today, the same morning Mom had left that voicemail. This wasn't a sudden decision. This was a planned execution. I photographed every page with my phone, making sure to capture the timestamps and legal references. Then I dug deeper into the filing cabinet, looking for anything else that might explain how long this betrayal had been brewing. What I found was worse than I'd expected. Bank statements showed Paige had been receiving emergency disbursements from the trust for the past 6 months. Amounts that started small, a few hundred here and there, but had escalated to thousands per month. The most recent withdrawal was for $15,000, approved just last week while I'd been working 16-hour days to secure a new shipping contract. Email printouts revealed the full scope of their conspiracy. Mom and Paige had been planning this for months, discussing my entitlement issues and my lack of appreciation for family sacrifice. Paige had apparently convinced Mom that I was planning to claim the entire trust for myself, a complete fabrication, since I'd never even asked about the trust's status. The final piece of evidence was a handwritten note in Mom's careful script. "Paige needs this more. Caleb has his business. Time to redistribute family resources more fairly." I photographed everything, uploaded the images to secure cloud storage, and carefully returned the documents to their original positions. By 3 a.m., I was back home, sitting in my kitchen with a growing sense of cold determination. They wanted to play games with family loyalty? Fine. But they'd picked the wrong opponent. My phone buzzed with a text from Paige. Left my phone at your place. Can I pick it up tomorrow? Also, Mom wants to have lunch with you this week. She has something important to discuss about your future. I stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, Phone's here, lunch sounds great, I'm looking forward to hearing about my future. The irony was perfect. They thought they were setting me up for ambush, but I'd already seen their battle plans. Now it was time to prepare my own strategy. I opened my laptop and began researching trust law violations, fraud reporting procedures, and emergency trustee replacement protocols. If Mom and Paige wanted to take everything from me, they'd learn that everything included my willingness to play nice. The game was on, and I intended to win. The next morning, I played the role of oblivious brother perfectly. When Paige arrived to collect her phone, I greeted her with coffee and small talk, watching carefully for any tells that might reveal her guilt. You look tired, she said, settling into my kitchen chair with practiced familiarity. Everything okay with the business? Just busy season, I replied, handing her the phone. You know how it is? But I was studying her face, looking for cracks in the performance. Paige had always been a decent actress, high school drama club, college theater minor, but she'd never been able to hide her excitement when she thought she was winning. Today, she practically glowed with suppressed anticipation. Mom mentioned wanting to have lunch, I said casually. Any idea what that's about? Paige's smile flickered for just a moment. Oh, you know Mom. Probably just wants to catch up. She worries about you working too hard. Right. Worries about me working too hard while planning to steal my inheritance. The concern was touching. After Paige left, I drove to her boutique downtown. Elevated Essentials occupied a prime corner location in the Arts District, expensive real estate that should have been well beyond Paige's budget as a small business owner. Now I understood how she'd afforded it. I parked across the street and watched through the large windows as Paige moved around the store, arranging clothing displays and chatting with customers. Everything about the place screamed money. Polished concrete floors, designer fixtures, inventory that probably cost more than most people's cars. My phone rang. Mom. Caleb, sweetheart, how are you? The endearment felt like poison now. I'm good, Mom. Paige said you wanted to have lunch? Yes, I thought we should talk. Are you free Thursday? That new place on 5th Street? Thursday, the same day the trust amendment was scheduled to be filed. She wanted to distract me while the paperwork went through. Clever. Thursday works, I said, looking forward to it. Wonderful. Oh, and Caleb, I've been thinking about the trust lately. Your grandfather would be so proud of how our family has stayed close. Not every family manages to keep money from driving them apart. The audacity was breathtaking. She was literally in the process of stealing from me while lecturing about family unity. You're absolutely right, Mom. Family loyalty is everything. After ending the call, I spent the afternoon researching Grant Hall, the family attorney who would be filing the fraudulent amendment. His law office was small but respectable, specializing in estate planning and trust administration. From what I could find online, he had a clean reputation and no history of disciplinary actions, which meant he probably had no idea he was being used to commit fraud. That evening, I called Grant's office and scheduled an appointment for Wednesday morning, claiming I wanted to review my beneficiary status and discuss estate planning. His secretary was accommodating. Apparently responsible family members who wanted to understand their financial situations were rare enough to merit immediate attention. Wednesday arrived with unseasonable rain, the kind of gray, persistent drizzle that makes everything look washed out and depressing. Perfect weather for uncovering family betrayal. Grant Hall's office was exactly what I'd expected. Dark wood paneling, leather-bound legal volumes, and the faint smell of expensive cologne mixed with old paper. Grant himself was a thin man in his 50s, with careful eyes and the measured speech patterns of someone who'd spent decades avoiding lawsuits. Caleb, good to see you, he said, gesturing toward a chair across from his desk. Your mother speaks of you often. She's very proud of your business success. That's nice to hear, I replied, settling into the leather chair. Actually, that's part of why I'm here. With the business growing, I want to make sure I understand all my financial positions, including the family trust. Grant nodded approvingly. Responsible thinking. Let me pull your file. He moved to a filing cabinet and withdrew a thick folder marked Morgan Family Trust. As he opened it, I caught a glimpse of the amendment paperwork, the same documents I'd photographed 2 nights ago. Everything looks standard, Grant said, flipping through pages. You and your sister are equal beneficiaries, with your mother serving as trustee. The trust is well managed and should provide good long-term security for both of you. I leaned forward slightly. I'm curious about the amendment process. If circumstances changed, if someone wanted to modify the beneficiary structure, how would that work? Grant's expression became more cautious. Well, any amendments would require proper documentation and trustee approval. Why do you ask? Just trying to understand the process. Hypothetically, could my mother change the beneficiary percentages without my knowledge? Absolutely not, Grant said firmly. All beneficiaries must be notified of any material changes. It's both a legal requirement and an ethical obligation. Perfect. So Grant had no idea what Mom was planning, which meant when the amendment showed up for filing tomorrow, he'd be committing fraud unknowingly, unless someone warned him first. That's reassuring, I said, standing to leave. I appreciate your time, Grant. It's good to know the trust is in responsible hands. As I reached the door, I turned back casually. Oh, one more thing. If someone suspected trust fraud, hypothetically, what would be the proper reporting procedure? Grant's eyebrows rose. That's a serious allegation. Are you concerned about something specific? Just curious about the safeguards. You know how it is. You hear stories about family money causing problems. Well, suspected fraud should be reported immediately to the State Trust Regulatory Board. They have investigators who specialize in fiduciary misconduct, but I hope that's purely academic interest. Of course, I smiled. Thanks again. I left Grant's office with a clear understanding of the legal landscape. Mom and Paige had built their plan around my ignorance and Grant's unwitting cooperation. But they'd made a critical error. They'd assumed I would remain passive until it was too late to fight back. That afternoon, I prepared my counterattack. I compiled all my evidence into a comprehensive report. The voicemail recording, photographs of the fraudulent amendment, bank records showing Paige's excessive withdrawals, and email printouts revealing their conspiracy. Then I researched the State Trust Regulatory Board's fraud reporting procedures and prepared the necessary forms. But I didn't file anything yet. I wanted to see how far they'd go before I destroyed them. Thursday morning, I dressed carefully for lunch with Mom. Business casual, nothing that would suggest I suspected anything. I arrived at the restaurant 5 minutes early and chose a table near the back, away from other diners, but with a clear view of the entrance. Mom arrived precisely on time, looking elegant in a navy blazer and pearls. She'd always been beautiful, the kind of woman who turned heads even in her late 50s. Today, she looked particularly radiant, probably because she thought she was about to pull off the perfect crime. "Caleb, darling," she said, kissing my cheek before settling into her chair. "You look wonderful. Business must be going well." "Can't complain," I replied, watching her face carefully. Things are definitely changing, though. Lots of new developments." "That's actually what I wanted to discuss," Mom said, opening her menu. "I've been thinking about your future, about what your grandfather would have wanted for our family." "Here it comes." "The trust has served us well," she continued, "but I think it's time to reconsider how the assets are distributed. Paige has been struggling with the boutique, and I feel like we haven't been supporting her enough." "Supporting her how?" I asked innocently. "Well, she's been receiving some assistance from the trust, but it's not enough. I think a more substantial reallocation might be appropriate." The casual way she said reallocation was impressive, like she was discussing a stock portfolio adjustment instead of stealing my inheritance. "What kind of reallocation?" I pressed. Mom set down her menu and looked at me directly. "I think Paige should receive the majority share of the trust. She needs it more than you do." There it was. The moment of truth delivered over bread rolls and sparkling water. "The majority share," I repeated slowly. "What percentage are we talking about?" "All of it," Mom said quietly. "Caleb, you have your business. You're successful and independent. Paige needs family support to build her future." I felt something cold and sharp settle in my chest. Even knowing what was coming, hearing her say it out loud was devastating. This woman had raised me, loved me, celebrated every achievement in my life, and now she was calmly explaining why I deserved nothing. "All of it," I said again. "It's what's best for the family," Mom insisted. "Your grandfather wanted the trust to help his grandchildren succeed. Paige needs that help more than you do." I nodded slowly, as if considering her logic. "When would this happen?" "Grant is filing the paperwork today, actually. I wanted to tell you in person, so you'd understand this isn't about favoritism. It's about need." She'd already done it. While I sat here listening to her justifications, the fraudulent amendment was probably being processed at Grant's office. The betrayal was complete. "I appreciate you telling me," I said carefully. "It's a lot to process." I know it's difficult, Mom said, reaching across the table to pat my hand, but I think you'll come to see this is the right decision. Family means taking care of each other. The irony was so thick I could taste it. She was stealing from me while lecturing about family loyalty. But I kept my expression neutral, even managed a small smile. You're right, I said. Family is everything. We finished lunch with small talk about the weather and local news. Mom seemed relieved that I'd taken the news so well, even suggesting we should have dinner soon to celebrate the family coming together. I agreed enthusiastically. After leaving the restaurant, I drove straight home and opened my laptop. It was time to file my fraud report with the State Trust Regulatory Board. But first, I had one more call to make. Grant Hall's office. This is Patricia. Hi, Patricia. This is Caleb Morgan. I need to speak with Grant immediately about the trust amendment that was filed today. It's urgent. Hold, please. Grant came on the line within seconds. Caleb, what's wrong? Grant, I need you to stop processing the trust amendment immediately. I have evidence that it was prepared fraudulently without proper beneficiary notification. Silence on the other end. Grant? Caleb, I think you'd better come in, right now. I was already reaching for my car keys. Grant's office felt different when I arrived 30 minutes later. The comfortable, professional atmosphere had been replaced by something tense and urgent. Grant was waiting for me in the lobby, his usual calm demeanor replaced by obvious anxiety. My office, he said simply, leading me down the hallway. Once we were seated with the door closed, Grant pulled out the Morgan family trust file and set it on his desk between us. Tell me what you know, he said. I pulled out my phone and played Mom's voicemail. Grant's expression grew darker with each word. When it finished, he sat back in his chair and rubbed his temples. This is a disaster, he muttered. Caleb, I had no idea. Your mother told me you'd been informed and had agreed to the amendment. She lied, I said flatly. I have documentation proving this was planned without my knowledge. I showed him the photographs I'd taken from the trust office, including the timestamps that proved the amendment had been prepared before any family discussion. Grant studied the images, his jaw tightening. This is fraud. Clear, actionable fraud. If I'd filed this amendment, I could have lost my license. Could have? I haven't filed it yet. Something felt wrong this morning, so I decided to wait and call you first. Your mother wasn't happy about the delay. Relief flooded through me. So the amendment isn't active? No, and it won't be. Grant pulled the fraudulent documents from the file and fed them into his paper shredder. Caleb, I owe you an apology. I should have insisted on speaking with you before preparing any amendments. What happens now? Grant leaned forward, his expression serious. Now we report this to the appropriate authorities. Trust fraud is a serious crime, and your mother's actions constitute a clear breach of fiduciary duty. The State Regulatory Board will need to investigate. What about Paige? She was part of this. If she knowingly participated in defrauding a trust, she could face civil penalties and be required to return any funds she received improperly. Grant pulled out a legal pad and began making notes. How much has she withdrawn over the past year? I showed him the bank records I'd photographed. Grant whistled softly as he reviewed the amounts. $67,000 in unauthorized disbursements, he calculated. That's well beyond the emergency provisions of the trust. Can we get it back? We're going to try. But first, we need to secure the trust assets and remove your mother as trustee. I'll file for an emergency review this afternoon. The next few hours passed in a blur of legal paperwork and phone calls. Grant contacted the State Trust Regulatory Board, the trust's bank, and the bonding company that ensured Mom's position as trustee. By 5 p.m., the trust accounts had been frozen pending investigation, and Mom had been temporarily suspended from her trustee duties. I was driving home when my phone rang. Mom. Caleb, what have you done? Her voice was shaking with rage. Grant called and said the trust accounts are frozen. He's talking about fraud investigations and regulatory boards. What did you tell him? I told him the truth, I said calmly. About the voicemail, about the secret amendment, about Paige's unauthorized withdrawals. Silence. Then, you were spying on us. I was protecting myself from thieves. How dare you call me a thief? I raised you. I sacrificed everything for this family. You tried to steal my inheritance while lecturing me about family loyalty. What would you call that? I was trying to help Paige. She's struggling, and you have everything you need. So you decided to take what wasn't yours to give. That's called theft, Mom, even when family does it. The line went quiet for a long moment. When Mom spoke again, her voice was different, colder, more calculating. You're making a mistake, Caleb. Family is all you have. Destroy that, and what's left? I guess we'll find out. I hung up and immediately called Grant to report the conversation. He advised me to avoid contact with Mom and Paige until the investigation was complete. They're going to be desperate now, he warned. People facing fraud charges don't always make rational decisions. That evening, I was reviewing shipping manifests in my home office when I heard a car door slam in my driveway. Through the window, I saw Paige marching toward my front door, her face flushed with anger. She didn't knock, just used her spare key and stormed into my house. "You bastard," she spat, finding me in the office. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I stopped a crime," I replied, not looking up from my paperwork. "You're welcome." "A crime? I'm your sister. That money was helping me build a future. That money wasn't yours to take." Paige moved closer, her hands clenched into fists. "Mom was right about you. You're selfish and entitled, and you don't care about anyone but yourself." Now I looked up. "I'm selfish? You and Mom conspired to steal my entire inheritance, and I'm the selfish one? You don't need it. Your business is successful. You have everything you want." I was drowning, Caleb. The boutique was failing, and I didn't know how to ask for help. "So you decided to take help instead of asking for it. Mom said you'd never agree to give me more than token amounts. She said you were too controlling." I stood up slowly, keeping my voice level. "Paige, in the past 5 years, how many times have you asked me for money?" She hesitated. "That's not the point." "How many times?" "I don't know. A few." 17 times. I've given you money 17 times, totaling just over $30,000. I never asked for it back, never demanded explanations, never made you feel bad about needing help. So tell me again how I'm too controlling." Paige's anger faltered slightly. "That's different." "How is it different?" Because the trust money was supposed to be for both of us anyway. I was just getting my share early." "Your share, not my share, not the entire trust. Your share. Mom lied to you, Paige. Just like she lied to me, and just like she lied to Grant. She told him I'd agreed to the amendment. She told you I was selfish and controlling. She told me you were struggling and needed help. She played us against each other so she could justify stealing." For the first time since entering my house, Paige looked uncertain. "That's not..." She wouldn't... I pulled up the voicemail on my phone and played it again. "You have to take everything from him. Let him suffer." Paige listened with growing horror. When it ended, she sank into the chair across from my desk. "She said you were planning to claim the entire trust for yourself," Paige whispered. "She said we had to act first." "Did you ever ask me about that?" "No." "Did you ever think to verify what Mom was telling you?" "No." "Did it ever occur to you that stealing someone's inheritance might be wrong, regardless of the justification?" Paige started crying. Not the angry tears from earlier, but the broken sobs of someone realizing they'd been used. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry, Caleb. I believed her. She made it sound like you were the problem." I felt a moment of sympathy for my sister. She'd been manipulated just as thoroughly as I had, just in a different direction. But sympathy wasn't enough to undo the betrayal. "Sorry doesn't give me back the months of planning my financial destruction," I said quietly. "Sorry doesn't erase the fact that you were willing to take everything from me based on lies. What happens now? Now you pay back every dollar you took from the trust. Now you face whatever civil penalties the regulatory board decides to impose. Now you live with the consequences of your choices." Paige looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. "What about us? What about our family?" I considered the question seriously. 3 days ago, I'd believed we were a close, loving family. I'd trusted these people with my deepest vulnerabilities, shared my successes and failures with them, built my entire sense of identity around being a good son and brother. Now I knew it had all been performance. The moment they thought they could benefit from my destruction, they'd moved against me without hesitation. "There is no us anymore," I said finally. "There's no family. There's just people who tried to steal from me and failed." Paige left without another word. I watched through the window as she sat in her car for several minutes, probably calling Mom to report on our conversation. Then she drove away, and I was alone with the wreckage of everything I'd once believed about my life. But I wasn't sad. I was angry. And anger, I was discovering, was much more useful than grief. The next morning, Grant called with an update. The state regulatory board had assigned an investigator to the case, and a hearing was scheduled for the following week. Mom had hired her own attorney and was claiming the amendment had been a misunderstanding. "She's going to fight this," Grant warned. "Her lawyer is already talking about family disputes and communication breakdowns. They're going to try to frame this as a civil matter rather than criminal fraud." "Will that work?" "Not with the evidence we have. The voicemail alone proves intent to defraud, but it means this could get ugly. It's already ugly, I said. Let them fight. I have truth on my side. That afternoon, I drove past Page's boutique. There was a closed for family emergency sign in the window, and the parking lot was empty. Apparently, the stress of facing fraud charges was bad for business. Good. I continued downtown to Mom's house, the elegant Victorian she'd bought with trust funds 3 years ago. Her car was in the driveway, but the curtains were drawn and the house looked abandoned. As I sat in my car across the street, watching the house where I'd spent countless family holidays, I felt the last vestiges of sentimentality drain away. These people had tried to destroy me. Now it was my turn. The hearing was in 6 days. By then, I intended to have every piece of evidence organized, every legal argument prepared, and every possible defense anticipated. Mom and Paige wanted to play victim? Fine. But they'd learn the difference between being a victim and being defeated. The State Trust Regulatory Board hearing was scheduled for 9 a.m. on a Tuesday in a sterile conference room that smelled like industrial carpet and broken dreams. I arrived 15 minutes early, wearing my best suit and carrying a briefcase full of evidence that would destroy my family. Grant was already there, reviewing his notes and looking appropriately serious. Across the room, Mom sat with her attorney, a sharp-dressed woman named Victoria Pierce, who specialized in white-collar defense. Mom looked smaller than usual, older, like the stress of the past week had aged her years. Paige wasn't there. According to Grant, she'd chosen not to contest the charges and had agreed to cooperate with the investigation in exchange for reduced penalties. Smart move. Too bad it was about a week too late. The hearing officer was a thin man named Douglas Webb, who looked like he'd been arbitrating trust disputes since the invention of money. He reviewed the case file with methodical precision before calling the hearing to order. This is an investigative hearing into allegations of trust fraud and breach of fiduciary duty, Webb announced. Mrs. Morgan, you stand accused of attempting to fraudulently modify the Morgan Family Trust to exclude your son, Caleb Morgan, as a beneficiary without proper notification or consent. How do you respond? Mom's attorney stood. Your Honor, my client maintains that this was a misunderstanding. Mrs. Morgan believed she had the authority to reallocate trust assets based on family need, and she intended to discuss the changes with her son after the paperwork was filed. Webb looked unimpressed. After the paperwork was filed? Yes, Your Honor. Mrs. Morgan felt it would be easier to explain the changes once they were official. I almost laughed. Even Mom's lawyer seemed to realize how weak that argument sounded. Grant stood next. Your Honor, we have clear evidence that Mrs. Morgan planned to defraud the trust and deliberately excluded Mr. Morgan from any discussion of the amendment. We also have evidence of unauthorized disbursements to Mrs. Morgan's daughter, totaling over $67,000. Present your evidence, Webb said. Grant began with the voicemail. Mom's voice filled the sterile conference room. You have to take everything from him. Let him suffer. The effect was devastating. I watched Mom's face crumble as her own words condemned her. Her attorney scribbled furious notes, probably trying to figure out how to explain away such damning evidence. Next came the photographs of the trust amendment, showing it had been prepared before any family discussion. Then the bank records, proving Page's excessive withdrawals. Finally, the email printouts revealing months of conspiracy. By the time Grant finished presenting evidence, Mom looked like she wanted to disappear into the conference room floor. Webb reviewed the materials with obvious displeasure. Mrs. Morgan, this evidence suggests a deliberate pattern of deception and financial misconduct. Do you have any explanation for the voicemail message? Mom's attorney whispered something urgent in her ear, but Mom shook her head and stood to address Webb directly. I was angry, she said quietly. Caleb has always been successful, and Paige has struggled. I felt like the trust should help the child who needed it most. So you decided to exclude your son entirely? I thought it was fair. Without discussing it with him? I knew he wouldn't agree. Webb leaned back in his chair. Mrs. Morgan, do you understand that trust beneficiaries have legal rights that cannot be arbitrarily terminated by a trustee? I was trying to help my daughter by stealing from your son. The words hung in the air like an accusation that couldn't be denied. Mom's attorney tried to object, but Webb waved her off. This hearing is to determine facts, not argue legal technicalities, Webb said. And the facts are clear. Mrs. Morgan, you attempted to defraud a trust beneficiary and authorized improper disbursements to another beneficiary. These actions constitute serious violations of your fiduciary duties. He turned to me. Mr. Morgan, what outcome are you seeking? I stood slowly. I'd rehearsed this moment, but actually facing Mom across a conference room while destroying her life felt surreal. I want my mother removed as trustee, I said clearly. I want all improper disbursements recovered from my sister. I want the trust accounts restored to their proper balances. And I want assurance that this will never happen again. What about criminal charges? Webb asked. I looked at Mom. She was staring at her hands, tears streaming down her face. 3 weeks ago, I would have done anything to protect her from this kind of humiliation. Now I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. I'll leave that to the appropriate authorities, I said. Webb made notes on his legal pad. Very well. Mrs. Morgan, you are hereby removed as trustee of the Morgan Family Trust, effective immediately. Mr. Grant Hall will serve as interim trustee until permanent arrangements can be made. All trust accounts will be audited, and any improper disbursements will be recovered through civil action. He looked up at Mom's attorney. I'm also referring this matter to the district attorney's office for potential criminal prosecution. Trust fraud is a serious crime, regardless of family relationships. Mom's attorney nodded grimly. She'd probably known this was coming from the moment she heard the voicemail. This hearing is concluded, Webb announced. Mr. Hall, please coordinate with the trust's bank to restore proper account access. Mrs. Morgan, you have 30 days to provide a complete accounting of all trust transactions during your tenure as trustee. As people began gathering their papers and filing out, Mom approached me near the conference room door. Caleb, she said quietly, please, can we talk? I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time since this nightmare began. She looked old and broken, nothing like the confident woman who'd raised me. Part of me wanted to feel sorry for her. But then I remembered the voicemail. Let him suffer. We just did talk, I said, in front of a hearing officer with evidence and witnesses. That's the only kind of talking we'll be doing from now on. I'm your mother. No, I said quietly. You were my mother. Now you're just someone who tried to steal from me. I walked away without looking back. Outside the building, Grant caught up with me. How do you feel? He asked. I considered the question. How did I feel? Victorious, vindicated, relieved? Empty, I said finally. But not sorry. Grant nodded. That's normal. Family betrayal is different from other kinds of hurt. It cuts deeper because you never see it coming. What happens next? We audit the trust, recover the stolen funds, and set up proper oversight to prevent future problems. Paige will have to repay everything she took, probably through a payment plan since she clearly doesn't have $67,000 lying around. And Mom? That depends on the district attorney. Trust fraud can be prosecuted as a felony, but first-time offenders with family circumstances sometimes get plea deals. I found myself hoping she'd get the full penalty. Not because I wanted her to suffer, though I did, but because some crimes deserve consequences regardless of the excuses behind them. That afternoon, I drove past Paige's boutique again. The closed for family emergency sign was still there, but now there was also a for lease sign in the window. Apparently losing access to stolen money had made the business unsustainable. Good. I continued to Mom's house. A for sale sign had appeared on the front lawn, and there were moving boxes visible through the front windows. She was probably liquidating assets to pay for legal defense and eventual restitution. Also good. My phone buzzed with a text from Paige. Can we please talk? I know I messed up, but we're still family. I deleted the message without responding. Another text arrived an hour later. Mom is devastated. She's talking about leaving town. Is this really what you want? I typed back, yes. The final text came that evening. I hope you're happy. You've destroyed our family. I stared at that message for a long time before responding. I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped pretending it existed. Then I blocked both their numbers. Over the next few days, Grant worked with the bank to restore my access to the trust accounts and begin the audit process. The numbers were worse than we'd initially thought. Mom had been taking administrative fees for herself, in addition to authorizing Paige's withdrawals. The total theft was closer to $85,000. Can we recover it all? I asked. Most of it, Grant said. Your mother's house sale should cover her portion, and we'll set up a payment plan for Paige. It might take a few years, but you'll get your money back. What about the criminal case? The district attorney is reviewing the file. Given the amount involved and the clear evidence of intent, I'd expect charges to be filed within the next month. I felt a grim satisfaction at that news. Mom had gambled that family loyalty would protect her from consequences. She'd lost that bet spectacularly. 2 weeks later, I was working late in my office when I heard a car in the driveway. Through the window, I saw Mom getting out of her car, moving slowly like an old woman. She knocked on my door, but I didn't answer. She knocked again, then tried the doorbell. "Caleb, I know you're in there," she called. "Please, I just want to say goodbye." I stayed silent. "I'm leaving town tomorrow," she continued. "I can't stay here after everything. I wanted you to know that I'm sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I needed to say it." Still silence. "I love you," she said finally, her voice breaking. "I know you don't believe that anymore, but it's true. I made terrible choices, but I do love you." I listened to her footsteps retreating to her car, heard the engine start, watched her drive away for what I assumed would be the last time. She was right. I didn't believe her anymore. Love doesn't plan someone's destruction while smiling at family dinners. Love doesn't conspire to steal inheritances while lecturing about family loyalty. Whatever she felt for me, it wasn't love. It was something else. Possession, maybe, or control. But not love. The next morning, Grant called with final news. "The district attorney is filing charges," he said. "Your mother has been indicted for trust fraud and breach of fiduciary duty. If convicted, she's looking at up to 5 years in prison." "When's the trial?" "There probably won't be one. Her attorney is already talking plea bargain. Given the evidence, she'll likely plead guilty in exchange for reduced charges." "How reduced?" "Probably probation and restitution, maybe some community service. The system doesn't like sending first-time offenders to prison for family financial crimes." I felt a moment of disappointment. After everything she'd done, Mom would probably avoid serious consequences. But then I realized it didn't matter. The real punishment wasn't prison, it was the complete destruction of everything she'd built. Her reputation was ruined. Her position as family matriarch was gone. Her relationship with both her children was destroyed beyond repair. She'd lost her home, her community standing, and her sense of identity. That was enough. 3 months after the hearing, the trust audit was complete and my accounts were restored. Paige had begun making monthly payments toward her debt, though at her current rate it would take 7 years to repay everything she'd stolen. I didn't care how long it took. Every payment was a reminder of what happened when people betrayed my trust. The boutique had closed permanently, and Paige had taken a job at a department store in the mall. From successful business owner to retail clerk, a fitting consequence for someone who'd gambled her future on stolen money. Mom had moved to another state, though I didn't know where and didn't care. She was someone else's problem now. As for me, I focused on my business and discovered something interesting. I was happier without my family than I'd ever been with them. The constant stress of managing relationships with people who saw me as a resource rather than a person was gone. The guilt over not doing enough for Paige was gone. The obligation to maintain appearances for Mom's sake was gone. I was free, and I intended to stay that way. 6 months after the hearing, I thought the Morgan family drama was finished. The trust was secure, the thieves were punished, and I'd successfully excised the toxic relationships that had poisoned my life for 35 years. I was wrong. The first sign of trouble came on a Thursday evening when I found Paige waiting in my office parking lot. She looked terrible, thinner than before, with dark circles under her eyes and clothes that had seen better days. The confident, manipulative sister I'd known had been replaced by someone desperate. "We need to talk," she said as I got out of my car. "No, we don't," I replied, walking toward my building. "You need to make your monthly payment and leave me alone." "I can't make the payment this month." I stopped walking. "Excuse me?" "I lost my job. The store manager found out about the fraud case and decided I was a liability to company reputation. I've been looking for work, but everyone runs background checks now." I turned to face her. "That sounds like a personal problem. Caleb, I'm about to be evicted. I can't afford groceries. I'm asking for help." The audacity was breathtaking. "You're asking the person you tried to rob for help?" "I'm asking my brother for help." "You gave up the right to call me brother when you decided to steal my inheritance." Paige's composure cracked. "Fine. I'm asking for basic human decency. I made mistakes, but I don't deserve to be homeless." I studied her face, looking for signs of manipulation or performance. All I saw was genuine desperation, which somehow made me angrier than her previous schemes. "You made mistakes?" I said quietly. "Is that what we're calling conspiracy to commit fraud now?" I was stupid and desperate, and Mom convinced me. "Stop." I held up a hand. "Don't blame Mom for your choices. You knew stealing was wrong. You did it anyway because you thought it would benefit you. Now you're facing consequences. So you're just going to let me become homeless?" "I'm going to let you experience the natural results of your actions." Paige stared at me like I'd grown a second head. "What happened to you? You used to care about people." "I used to care about family. Then my family tried to destroy me. We made mistakes, but we're still relatives. That has to count for something." I felt something cold and final settle in my chest. Relatives? Is that supposed to mean something to me? You and Mom spent months planning my financial destruction. You celebrated the idea of taking everything from me. You wanted to watch me suffer, but now that you're suffering, suddenly family relationships matter? We were wrong. You were criminals. There's a difference. Paige started crying, but they weren't the manipulative tears she'd used during our childhood. These were the broken sobs of someone whose life was collapsing. Please, she whispered. I know I don't deserve help, but I'm begging you. I have nowhere else to go. For a moment, just a moment, I felt a flicker of the old sympathy. This was my sister, the person I'd protected from bullies in elementary school, taught to drive when she turned 16, celebrated with when she graduated college. Then I remembered the voicemail. Take everything from him. Let him suffer. You should have thought about that before you decided to rob me, I said. Figure it out yourself. I walked into my building and locked the door behind me, leaving Paige crying in the parking lot. The next morning, Grant called with disturbing news. Your mother is back in town, he said. Her attorney contacted me about modifying the restitution agreement. What kind of modification? She wants to reduce her monthly payments. Apparently she's having trouble finding work in her new location. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Let me guess. Potential employers don't like hiring convicted fraudsters. That seems to be the issue. Her attorney is claiming financial hardship and asking for reduced payments spread over a longer timeline. Absolutely not. I told him the same thing, but he's threatening to petition the court for modification, claims the current payment schedule is causing undue hardship. She caused undue hardship when she tried to steal my inheritance. Tell her attorney that if she wants to modify anything, she can explain to a judge why her comfort matters more than my restitution. That afternoon, I decided to drive past Mom's old house. The new owners had already made changes. Fresh paint, new landscaping, a children's playground in the backyard. It looked like a home again instead of a monument to family dysfunction. As I was leaving the neighborhood, I spotted a familiar car parked outside the community center. Mom's old Honda, looking even more battered than I remembered. Curious, I parked across the street and watched. After about 10 minutes, Mom emerged from the building carrying a box of what looked like donated food. She moved slowly, like someone much older than her 58 years. She looked broken. Good. As she loaded the box into her car, she glanced around the parking lot and spotted me. For a moment, we stared at each other across the distance. Then she raised her hand in a tentative wave. I started my engine and drove away without acknowledging her. That evening, my doorbell rang. I checked the security camera and saw both Mom and Paige standing on my front porch, looking like refugees from their former lives. I didn't answer the door. They rang again, then knocked. Finally, Mom called out, "Caleb, please, we just want to talk." I turned up the volume on my television and ignored them. After about 20 minutes, they left. But the next evening, they were back, and the evening after that. On the fourth night, I'd had enough. I opened the door while they were still knocking. "What do you want?" I asked. Mom looked startled, like she hadn't expected me to actually answer. "Caleb, we need to talk about the family." "There is no family." "We're still your mother and sister," Paige said. "That doesn't change because of mistakes." "Mistakes," I repeated. "You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means." "We were wrong," Mom said quickly. "We know that now, but we're asking for forgiveness." "Forgiveness?" I laughed. "You want forgiveness for trying to steal my inheritance? For planning my financial destruction? For celebrating the idea of making me suffer?" "We were desperate," Paige started. "You were greedy," I corrected. "And now you're desperate. There's a difference." Mom stepped closer. "Caleb, I know we hurt you, but you're hurting us now. Paige is about to be homeless. I'm living in a studio apartment and eating donated food. Is this really what you want?" I considered the question seriously. "Yes," I said finally. "This is exactly what I want." They both stared at me in shock. "You tried to take everything from me," I continued. "Now I've taken everything from you. Seems fair." "We're family," Mom whispered. "No," I said quietly. "We're strangers who used to share a last name. And even that's about to change." "What do you mean?" "I'm legally changing my name. Effective next month, there won't be any connection between us at all." The announcement hit them like a physical blow. Mom actually staggered backward. "You can't be serious," Paige said. "I'm completely serious. I don't want to share a name with criminals." "Caleb, please," Mom begged. "We can fix this. We can be a family again." "Fix this?" I felt anger rising in my chest. "You think this is fixable? You think there's some magic combination of words that will make me forget you tried to rob me?" "We made mistakes." Stop calling them mistakes, I shouted. Mistakes are accidental. What you did was deliberate, planned, and malicious. You wanted to destroy me, and the only reason you didn't succeed is because I was smarter than you expected. We never wanted to destroy you, Mom protested. I pulled out my phone and played the voicemail again. Take everything from him. Let him suffer. Mom's voice filled the evening air, condemning her with her own words. That sounds like destruction to me, I said when it finished. I was angry, and now I'm angry. The difference is, I'm better at it than you are. I stepped back into my house. Don't come here again. Don't call, don't write, don't ask mutual acquaintances to intercede on your behalf. You're both strangers to me now, and I want to keep it that way. Caleb. I closed the door and locked it. They stood on my porch for another hour, occasionally knocking or calling my name. I ignored them completely. Eventually, they gave up and left. The next morning, Grant called with an update on Mom's petition for reduced restitution payments. The judge denied her request, he said. Apparently, her attorney couldn't provide adequate justification for modification, especially given the deliberate nature of the original fraud. Good. There's more. The judge was apparently annoyed by the petition and made some comments about people who commit financial crimes expecting sympathy for the consequences. Even better. Your mother's attorney asked about the possibility of bankruptcy discharge for the restitution debt. Can she do that? No. Restitution for criminal acts isn't dischargeable in bankruptcy. She's stuck with the payments until they're satisfied. I felt a warm glow of satisfaction. Mom had tried every angle to escape consequences for her actions, and every door had slammed shut. She was trapped in a life of her own making, with no way out except years of monthly payments that would remind her daily of what she'd lost. Perfect. That afternoon, I finalized the paperwork for my name change. Effective in 30 days, I would legally become Caleb Sterling, my grandfather's middle name, chosen to honor the man who'd created the trust that Mom had tried to destroy. It felt like a rebirth. 2 weeks later, I was leaving my office when I found Paige waiting by my car again. She looked even worse than before. Clothes that didn't fit properly, shoes with worn soles, the general appearance of someone living on the edge of homelessness. I got evicted, she said without preamble. I'm sleeping in my car. I'm sorry to hear that, I replied, though I wasn't. No, you're not. You're enjoying this. She was right, but I saw no reason to admit it. What do you want, Paige? I want to know what it will take for you to forgive us. I unlocked my car and opened the door. Nothing. There's nothing you can do, nothing you can say, nothing you can offer that will make me forgive you. So this is permanent? You're just going to hate us forever? I paused with one foot in the car. I don't hate you. Hate requires emotional investment, and I don't have any emotions left for you. Then what do you feel? I considered the question. Satisfaction. You tried to destroy me, and instead you destroyed yourselves. That feels like justice. We're your family. You were my family. Now you're just people who made very poor decisions and are living with the consequences. I got in my car and started the engine. Paige stepped back, but she didn't leave. You used to be a good person, she called as I backed out of the parking space. What happened to you? I rolled down my window. I learned that being good to bad people is just another form of stupidity. Then I drove away, leaving her standing alone in the empty parking lot. That night, I celebrated my victory with an expensive bottle of wine and a steak dinner. 6 months ago, I'd been the target of a family conspiracy designed to steal my inheritance and destroy my financial security. Now, the conspirators were homeless, unemployed, and legally obligated to pay me restitution for years to come. They'd wanted to take everything from me and watch me suffer. Instead, I'd taken everything from them, and I was just getting started. The final confrontation came on a cold Tuesday evening in November, exactly 1 year after I'd first heard Mom's voicemail. I was leaving my office late, reviewing shipping contracts for a new client, when I found both Mom and Paige waiting in the parking lot. They looked like ghosts of their former selves. Mom had aged a decade in 12 months, as gray hair, worn clothes, the defeated posture of someone who'd lost everything that mattered. Paige was worse, with the hollow-eyed appearance of someone living rough. Caleb, Mom said as I approached my car, we need to talk. No, I replied, not breaking stride. We don't. Please, Paige stepped into my path. Just 5 minutes. I stopped walking and looked at them both. 5 minutes for what? More apologies, more excuses, more begging? We want to make things right, Mom said. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Make things right? How exactly do you plan to do that? We'll do whatever it takes, Paige said desperately. We'll pay back every penny, we'll apologize publicly, You'll what? I interrupted. You'll undo the past year of trying to destroy me? You'll erase the months of conspiracy and betrayal? You'll magically restore my ability to trust family members?" They both stared at me in silence. "That's what I thought," I continued. "You can't make this right because what you did was fundamentally wrong. You didn't make a mistake. You made a choice, a deliberate, calculated choice to steal from me." "We were desperate," Mom started. "Stop." I held up a hand. "I'm tired of hearing about your desperation. You want to know about desperation? Let me tell you what it felt like to discover that my own mother was planning my financial destruction. Let me tell you about the sleepless nights wondering what other lies you told me over the years. You never meant to get caught," I corrected. "That's different from never meaning to hurt me." I pulled out my phone and played the voicemail one more time. After all these months, it still had the power to shock them. "Take everything from him. Let him suffer," Mom's voice echoed in the empty parking lot. "Those were your words," I said when it finished. "Not taken out of context, not misunderstood, not spoken in anger. Those were your actual intentions, clearly stated." Mom started crying. "I was wrong. I know I was wrong." "Yes, you were wrong, and now you're suffering the consequences." "So this is it?" Paige asked. "You're just going to let us be homeless while you live comfortably?" I felt a flash of the old anger. "I'm going to let you experience the natural results of your choices, just like you wanted me to experience the natural results of being robbed by my family." "We're not the same people who made those choices," Mom pleaded. "We've learned from our mistakes." "Have you?" I asked. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've learned that actions have consequences. That's not the same thing as learning you were wrong." "What do you want from us?" Paige demanded. "What will it take for you to help us?" I considered the question seriously. What did I want from them? "I want you to disappear," I said finally. "I want to never see you again, never hear from you again, never have to think about you again. I want you to become strangers to me, in fact, as well as in feeling." "You don't mean that," Mom whispered. "I absolutely mean that. You tried to take everything from me. Now I want everything of you gone from my life. We're your family." "No," I said quietly. "Family doesn't do what you did. Family doesn't plan the destruction of family members. Family doesn't celebrate the idea of causing suffering." I walked around them toward my car. "You wanted me to have nothing. Now you have nothing. Seems fair to me." "Caleb, wait," Mom called after me. "Please, we can't keep living like this." I stopped and turned back to face them one last time. "Then don't. Leave town. Start over somewhere else. Build new lives with new names and never mention the Morgan family again." "Just like that?" Paige asked. "Just abandon everything?" "You already abandoned everything that mattered when you decided to steal from me. Now you're just making it official." I got in my car and started the engine. Through the windshield, I could see them standing together in the empty parking lot, looking lost and defeated. Good. As I drove away, I felt something settle in my chest. Not satisfaction, not anger, not grief, just nothing. These people had been my family for 35 years, and now they were nothing to me, less than nothing. The next morning, Grant called with final news about the restitution payments. "Your mother missed another payment," he said. "That's 3 in a row. We can petition the court for wage garnishment if she's employed, or asset seizure if she has anything left to seize." "Is she employed?" "According to her attorney, she's working part-time at a grocery store in the next county, minimum wage." "Garnish her wages." "Are you sure? It'll leave her with almost nothing to live on." "She tried to leave me with nothing to live on. I'm just returning the favor." "Caleb, I have to ask, are you sure this is what you want? Pursuing someone into complete destitution, even someone who wronged you, can feel hollow once you achieve it." I thought about Grant's question. Did I want Mom and Paige to be destitute? Did I want them to suffer indefinitely? "Yes," I said finally. "I want them to understand what they tried to do to me. I want them to live with the consequences of their choices for as long as it takes to repay every dollar they stole." "And after that?" "After that, I want them to disappear from my life completely." Grant was quiet for a moment. "You know, in 30 years of practicing law, I've seen a lot of family financial disputes. Most of them end with some kind of reconciliation, even when the betrayal was severe. This one won't." "You sound very certain about that." "I am certain. These people tried to destroy me while pretending to love me. There's no coming back from that." "What if they genuinely change? What if they spend years proving they're different people?" I considered the hypothetical. "Then they'll be different people who once tried to steal my inheritance. Still not people I want in my life." Grant sighed. "I'll file for wage garnishment." That afternoon, I drove past the grocery store where Mom was apparently working. I didn't see her, but I imagined her stocking shelves or running a register, probably hoping none of her coworkers would discover her criminal history. The thought made me smile. Over the next few months, the garnishment order went into effect, and Mom's meager wages were automatically diverted to pay her restitution debt. According to Grant, she'd moved into a boarding house and was living on whatever remained after the garnishment, probably less than $500 a month. Paige had apparently left town entirely. Her last known address was a homeless shelter 3 states away, though even that information was weeks old. They were both gone from my life, exactly as I'd wanted. My name change had become official, and I was now legally Caleb Sterling. I'd updated all my business documents, bank accounts, and professional licenses. The Morgan family name was officially gone to me. The trust had been fully restored, with Grant serving as the new permanent trustee. The stolen funds were being repaid slowly but steadily through wage garnishments and asset seizures. At the current rate, full restitution would take about 8 years. 8 years of monthly reminders for Mom about what she'd lost by trying to steal from me. Perfect. One evening, about 18 months after the original confrontation, I was working late in my office when I found an envelope slipped under my door. No postmark, no return address, just my name written in Mom's familiar handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a brief message. Caleb, I know you don't want to hear from me, but I needed you to know that I understand now what I did to you. Not just the legal fraud, but the betrayal of trust. I destroyed something that can never be repaired, and I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness, and I'm not asking for help. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand. I hope you find happiness. Mom? I read the letter twice, then fed it into my paper shredder. Some apologies come too late to matter. 2 years later, Grant called with news that Mom had finished paying her restitution. She made the final payment last week, he said. Technically, her legal obligations to you are now satisfied. Good, I replied. Now she can disappear completely. Have you given any thought to what comes next? What do you mean? I mean, you've achieved everything you set out to achieve. Your family members who betrayed you have lost everything, paid back everything they stole, and been removed from your life. What's your next goal? I thought about Grant's question. What was my next goal? To stay successful, I said finally. To build a life that doesn't depend on family relationships? To never again trust people who share my DNA? That sounds lonely. It sounds safe. Those aren't the same thing. They are for me. After hanging up, I sat in my office and reflected on the past 2 years. I'd won completely. The trust was secure, the thieves were punished, and my life was free from toxic family relationships. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt empty. But it was a clean emptiness, like a house after all the clutter has been removed. There was space now for new things, better things, relationships built on honesty instead of family ties. I never saw Mom or Paige again. According to occasional reports from Grant, Mom had moved to another state and was working under her maiden name. Paige had apparently disappeared entirely. No employment records, no forwarding addresses, no trace of her existence. They'd gotten their wish in a way. They'd wanted to take everything from me and start fresh with stolen money. Instead, they'd lost everything and been forced to start fresh with nothing. The irony was perfect. 5 years after the original betrayal, I sold Morgan Logistics for a substantial profit and started a new company under my new name. Sterling Supply Chain Solutions became one of the most successful logistics firms in the region, built on a foundation of competence and honesty rather than family connections. I never married, never had children, never built the kind of family relationships that most people consider essential for happiness. Instead, I built professional relationships based on mutual benefit and respect, relationships that couldn't be poisoned by family ties or childhood resentments. It was a good life, a successful life, a life free from the kind of betrayal that had once nearly destroyed me. And if sometimes I wondered what might have happened if I'd chosen forgiveness over revenge, if I'd tried to rebuild rather than destroy, if I'd valued family bonds over personal justice, well, those were just idle thoughts. I'd made my choice the night I heard that voicemail. Take everything from him, let him suffer. They'd wanted me to lose everything. Instead, I'd won everything, and I'd done it by becoming exactly what they'd tried to make me. Someone with nothing left to lose and no family left to betray. The game was over. I'd won. The silence that remained was exactly what I'd wanted.